All right, I don't have that much gear. The reason for that is that for the first 5 years of my professional work, I worked for a company that bought all the gear that I used, both for professional and personal use. So I never really needed it, and when I did, I borrowed cameras from friends and acquaintances. For the last 9 months of me freelancing, I worked as a freelance video editor and second camera op for a friend of mine in Sweden that has a FX6. So I used his camera and everything. And when I'm at home in Estonia, I use my friend Vlad's cameras. But there have been many times when I was doing a project and I really didn't have it much. Camera-wise or other gear-wise, it's really limited in my options. I have done a lot of projects with very cheap cameras, very old cameras. I have done a lot of projects with very sus lighting setups. Here are some of the things I learned during this time. So the first thing is just how to get the best out of the gear that you have. You know, I've been very limited in the settings and the functions of cameras that I've been using in a lot of my personal projects. You know, I might have one good camera. I've worked a lot with the A7 III for most of my professional career, but I often was sort of forced to match that camera to other ones, like my old EOS 700D. That was my first camera. I have projects where I was using the A7 III, the Canon EOS R, and my 700D, plus 2 Nikon cameras for like super backup footage. And you know, I'm actually quite proud of that. I've learned how to light with just minimal gear, like even for this setup, for instance. Right now I'm not at home, I'm at my parents' house in the States, and so I don't have all of my lighting gear. So I kind of just using the window behind the camera with blinds covering it up, and a little blanket off to the side to kind of give me some shadow, and that's kind of all I'm using. And I'm also using the Christmas lights in the back and that one just for some ambient lighting, but that's it, you know. This is probably a really good example of what I've learned from just not having any gear. Another thing I've learned is getting it right in camera, you know. Things like exposure and color temperature, I have learned through very painful situations to get right in camera, because the cameras I was often using did not have the dynamic range and the ability to change in post. So it really kind of ingrained into me, get it right now or I won't be able to use the footage. And so now I spend way more time setting up the shot than I do actually filming it. And I think that is a good thing in some ways. The next thing I learned was how to compensate in post for certain things, especially with the old cameras I was using, how to compensate for the colors and just the overall quality. I would do things like extensive color correction and grading to try to match the older and worse cameras to the better and nicer ones. And I'll do things like de-sharpen the better cameras to bring them down a little bit to make them less clean and clinical looking, and then add a layer of grain on top to kind of blend the different cameras into one look. The amount of hours I've spent color correcting and trying to fix bad footage is just crazy, but I do think that it has helped me to understand the colors a lot more than I did before. The last thing that I learned, and probably the most important thing, was to just start filming. You know, there's always this thought that I'll wait until I get this camera, I'll wait until I save up for this light, for this microphone. If you don't start with what you have, you're not going to be really good when you get the good stuff. The sooner you start building your skills and your portfolio, even if it's with bad gear, the sooner that you will be able to actually get projects that will that you can get paid for, and that can actually allow you to buy the gear that you want in the future. It's really given me the freedom to create with whatever I've got, wherever I am. Even when I have almost no gear, the only thing that's mine here is this microphone and recorder. And the laptop I'm reading my notes off. The camera is borrowed. The box it's sitting on is my brother's. I have a blanket off to the side to give me some negative fill. You know, it's just the absolute minimum. And I kind of like the image, you know? It doesn't take a lot. It does take some skill. The only reason I'm able to do this is because I have done it quite a few times. using just the bare minimum of what is available to me. Well worth my time. Well worth my time. If you're just stuck thinking that you really need that camera to start filming, and you really need that light or that studio, you don't. This is the bare minimum of equipment I'm using. This not the most aesthetic room. You don't need that much. It takes some skill, takes some time to learn, but you don't need that much. This is what I learned. I really, really want to continue learning this because I do understand that I have a lot to learn. All of the different aspects I want to really sharpen my skills in, but you don't need to be a professional to start. And you won't be a professional if you don't. So just start. Yeah, that's all I want to say.